Hi, Assalamualaikum. My name is Mohamad IQHWAN, Binti BAHARIN, holding matrix number A22A0668. Descriptive statistics are a set of short descriptive coefficients that summarize a data set, which might be a representation of the complete population or a sample of the population. Measure of central tendency and measure of reliability are two types of descriptive statistics. Descriptive statistics are used to describe or summarize the characteristic of a sample or data set, such as a variable mean, standard deviation, or frequency. The provided dataset is a representative sample of 400 listed stores that provide information on child car seat. Sale, comprise, income, advertising, population, price, shelf log, age, and urban are the 9 variables in the dataset.
My name is Muhammad Shamil bin Muhammad Nazif and my matrix number is A22A0675. Next is 2.0, sampling data and record categorical data. This section will go through how to sample from 400 observation into 115 observation sample. SPSS complete the sample and divide it into record variable. Sampling is the process of selecting a number of person or things for research in such a manner that the individual or item reflect the sample. The goal of sampling is to collect data from a sample in order to draw conclusions that can be applied. We use sample random sampling to divide the 400 observation into 150 samples. The variable that researchers selected were income, price, age, and urban.
Assalamualaikum and hello everyone. Before I continue, let me introduce myself. My name is Mohamad Danial SAFWAN and my matrix number is A22A1216. Then we had recorded one different categorical variable for urban because it is easier for us to calculate the frequencies.
Hi, Assalamualaikum. I am MAISARA binti UMAR, holding matrix number as A22A0237, and now I am going to explain in detail about numerical descriptive measures. From the dataset, we have selected 4 variables, which is 1 categorical variable and 3 numerical variable. For categorical variable, we chose an urban data, and the other 3 numerical variable include price, income, and age data. From all of this, we need to describe the data set using measures of central tendency, the measures of position, and the measures of variation. A measure of central tendency is a value that represents the center of a distribution. 3 most commonly used to measure of tendency for ungrouped and group data are mean, median, and mode. Mean, sum of data entries divided by the number of entries. So, mean for price data is Ringgit Malaysia 114.58, while mean for income data is $72.52, and mean for age data is 50.6566. Moving on to the next one, which is median. Median is the value that lies in the middle of the data when the data set is ordered. Median for price data is Ringgit Malaysia 101.9, while median for income is $74, and median for age data is 54.3260. Last one for measures of central tendency is mode. The data entry that occurs with the greatest frequency. Mode for price data is Ringgit Malaysia 94.45, while mode for income is $75.75, and mode for age data is 56. Next is measures of position, where to determine the measurement of position, the data must be sorted from lowest to highest. Quartiles. A quartile is one of 3 points that divide a data set into 4 equal groups. First quartile for price data is 74.6, and the third quartile is 118. Interquartile range for that is 43.4, where maximum data minus minimum data. Next is for income data, where the first quartile is 51.26 and the third quartile is 93.52. The interquartile for that is 42.26. Moving on to the third one data, which is age. The first quartile and the third quartile state as 48.3 and 64.86, while the interquartile range is 16.56. Lastly, measures of variation, which include variance and standard deviation. Variation for price is 3090721.2625, and the standard deviation is 1758.0447. Roughly, shapes for price data shows its skew to the right, where its tail extends to the right because of mean is the largest one and mode is the smallest one. Next is income data. Variation for income is 127,374.1176 and the standard deviation is 356.8951. For this data, it shows bell shape where it is normal when the mean, median and mode are equal. Last but not least, for each data, variation for each data is 206.1291757 and the standard deviation is 14.3571994. This also shows bell shape which is symmetric.
Assalamualaikum and hi, my name is INTAN Binti REANY and my metric number is 822A0218. Next part is graphical representation. Graphical representation is a method of analyzing numerical data. The first graph is histogram for income. We can determine the midpoint for each of the class intervals. The histogram is illustrated with two types of axes, which is x-axis with unit of income and y-axis with frequency. The next graph is frequency polygon. We use frequency polygon for the price. We can calculate the midpoints to plot the graph. The frequency polygon graph illustrated with two types of the axis, which is x-axis labeled with price and y-axis with frequency to plot the graph. The highest point is at the class 108 to 128, which is 59 frequency. The last graph we do is pie chart for urban variable, which is a factor of yes or no to indicate whether the store is located in an urban or rural location. We calculate the frequency by percentage, which is 33.73% for no and 66.27% for yes.
Hi, Assalamualaikum. My name is IFFA, AFIRAH RONI. My metric number is A22A0299. Now I will present about comparison between graph drawing versus SPSS. Firstly, histogram. Drawing graph is using group data and plot with x-axis and y-axis. The x-axis represent the midpoint of the class interval and y-axis represent the frequency. Then, the graph of SPSS is using ungrouped data. The x-axis and y-axis are the same as the drawing graph. The shape of the distribution is bell shape for per graph. Second is bar chart. The bar chart is plot the same location. The both graphs are illusion with the same scala because they are qualitative variable. The x-axis represent the three factors which are good, median, and bad, and the y-axis represent the frequency. Lastly, the bar chart is plot for urban. The group graph are illusion with the same scala because they are qualitative variable. The pie chart is illusion with two factors which are yes and no. Then I will talk about hypothesis testing. For hypothesis testing, we are required to use the t-test and ANOVA. Actually, hypothesis testing is a process that based on some sample data and probability theory so that we can make the conclusion to reject or not to reject the hypothesis. So now, I will explain about the t-test process first. There are 5 steps in doing the t-test. The example that I use in between sale and comp price that we did in the assignment. The first step is state null hypothesis and alternate hypothesis. Step 2 is stated the level of significance. Step 3 is to computer test statistic. The next step is make decision rules. This is the declaration of the situation under which the null hypothesis is rejected or not rejected. The last step is to make a decision and forming a conclusion. Here, we need to decide if to reject the null hypothesis or fail to reject the null hypothesis. Next is ANOVA. ANOVA, also known as analysis of variance, is a collection for statistic model used to analyze the difference between group means and the isolated product such as variance among between groups. To find ANOVA, there are 5 steps to need to do that we can make the decision at the end. To find ANOVA, there are 5 steps that we need to do that we can make the decision at the end. The first step is hypothesis. Firstly, we put the null hypothesis equal to total mean that we remind that we put the alternated hypothesis under the null hypothesis. The second step is stated the level of significance. The third step is test statistic, and for the step we just use SPSS software answer. Step 4 is make decision rules, and for the last step we need to make a decision and conclusion. In this step, it's same with the t-test, where we need to decide whether to reject the null hypothesis or fail reject the null hypothesis. We need to reject if the F value is generate that our F alpha value that we prefer from the F distribution table, and fail to reject it if the F value is smaller than F alpha value. That's all. Thank you.
Hi, Assalamualaikum. My name is Fatin Najwa binti Ishak and my matric number is 822A0294. So now, I will talk about the correlation analysis. Correlation analysis is a statistical technique used to determine the degree to which two variables are related. From the above table, the Pearson correlation is 0.413, so the strength of the relationship between sale and price are moderate. The nature of the correlation is negative. Next, the relationship is significant because the p-value is less than 0.05. Next, I will present about the confidence interval. For confidence interval, we had analyzed for the sale variables using the urban factor. Urban have two levels, which is yes and no. The 95% confidence interval can be related to this analysis. For no level, the lower boundary and upper boundary are 6.9872 and 8.7193 respectively. The standard error for this independent is 0.43215. For yes level, the lower boundary and upper boundary are 6.6832 and 7.7504 respectively. The standard error for yes level is 0.269. Then 5.5 prediction modeling. For summary, the explanation is the R-square value is 0.196, which means 19.6% of the variation in sale can be explained by the price, population, and income can be used to model sales. Next is the ANOVA. The p-value from ANOVA table is less than 0.001, which means that at least one of the three variables, which are price, population, and income, can be used to model sales. This slide shows the coefficient formula. The explanation for this coefficient is in the scatter plot matrix, graph 1, plot price against income. There is a moderate positive correlation between price and income. Graph 2 plots price against population. It is seen that higher the population, there is moderate positive correlation between price and population. Last, graph 3 plots income and population. There is a weak positive correlation between income and population.
In conclusion, we were given a set of data on child car seats in 400 different stores. In the data, there are several variables, namely sales, comprise, income, advertising, population, price, shelf load, age, and urban. From all of that, we chose 4 variables, which is price, income, age, and urban. Using that data, we need to prepare and complete some sections such as data description, sampling data, and record categorical data, numerical descriptive measures, graphical representation, which is drawing, and statistical analysis using the software. To compile a given dataset, we use a frequency distribution to calculate the number of classes, class intervals all widths, and class limits, relative frequency distributions, and cumulative frequency distribution. Next, for numerical descriptive measures, we use measures of central tendency for ungrouped and ungrouped data like mean, median, and mode, while we need to find the quartile for the measures of position and range, variance, as well as the standard deviation for the measures of variation. We were able to parse the data using tables and graph. The type of graph we use is histogram, frequency polygon, and pie chart. To complete this task, we also use the SPSS application. SPSS is a social science statistics package, and it can perform more complex analysis by including additional tools, dataset interpretation, and the data transmission. Using one-way ANOVA, it really helps to compare the answer and analyze the data. That's all from our group. Thank you.